Hold on a second. It's just water.
Good season. I'm sorry.
It's too early for vodka right now.
Oh, it's only 12 o'clock there, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, Paul, Enzo, thank you very much for joining me, and also just thank you for asking me to do this, because it's. Am I right? This is the first interview with you guys since the announcement.
Yeah, pretty much. There's been some stuff on social media, but we've not done any press or anything. Because the feature that you did with us took like 2 or 3 years ago now.
3 years.
Yeah. So
it was literally weeks before the pandemic really hit.
That's right. Yeah.
By the way, it was really good. That really, really
oh, thank you.
Thank you for the great reviews.
Cool. Well, yeah. So it's. I mean, obviously, I'm very excited. And a lot of people are too, because it's, I've been flying the flag for Slammer for a while now, and I know I've turned some new people on to you guys as well. And so there's there's ever since then there's been people, they gotta reform, and I'm like, I don't think that's a thing that's gonna happen.
Yeah, for a long time it was like that. Yeah, for a long time it was like that. But Enzo came over this year and we talked. I mean, we've been asked, haven't we, since we split up pretty much constantly, especially when I think I joined Facebook in 2006, and then within the first week, so you're him from that, They were asking us to do. Even back then, you know what I mean? So it's been a pretty constant stream of people wanting us to do it. So it seems silly not to, you know what I mean?
I guess that makes sense. But before we get into the specifics of that, just for the people who might be new to you guys, let's kind of take it back just for a second and do kind of like a little recap. And where I'm if I get any of my facts wrong, just jump in and tell me. But So way back in 1989 is when the first Slammer album came out, The Work of Idle Hands. And aside from it being an incredible album, the interesting thing about it is that, there was this UK thrash metal scene, but it was all largely on independent record labels. And here you guys come, and you've got a Warner Brothers deal. Now that's the part where I'm sketchy on. Like, was it a full-on major label deal, or all right, cool. And so from what I gathered, the big thing was not that you were looking for a major label deal. It's just that they were the ones that first came up and were actually excited to sign you guys.
It happened because the management we were with at the time managed to elicit a bit of a feeding frenzy between a few labels. I think it was Polydor, wasn't it, the first ones that approached us at a gig in Birmingham. We were on a tour. That had been put together, a really low-key independent tour, but great fun. And Polydor came to see us, and they missed us. They got there late, so they came to see another gig like 3 or 4 nights later in Sheffield, and that was it. But they offered us a ridiculous deal. They offered us about $5,000. It wasn't enough to make a single, let alone an album. You know what I mean? And so we were a bit put off by that. But then, because we were getting interest from a label, we got interest from people who wanted to manage us, and the guy who ended up managed to get a feeding frenzy between people like Phonogram Vertigo, EMI, and it just started doing this. It was ridiculous. We were sat there going, "What's going on?" So it wasn't an awful lot. I mean, it was to do with us. We attracted the interest initially.
Yeah.
The fact that we ended up on something like Warner Brothers, that was really down to the manager.
Initially, we went to Music for Nations. We went down to London, knocked on the door of Music for Nations, then tried to get on that label, because obviously there was all the classic thrash stuff that was on that label. So we were trying to get them, but they didn't really.
None of them were interested. No, one of them was interested. We approached Roadrunner. We approached all the ones that the bands like Metallica and Exodus and all of them. They were all licensed to independent labels over here, and we approached all of those labels, and they all not even slightly interested.
We actually did. Do you remember, Paul? We did that. We did a showcase for Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
In an empty venue.
Yeah.
Queen's Hall, which is a big venue near us.
Like an 800-seat venue.
And we have these
just 3 guys in it and us on stage.
Record label executives coming up, and 3 guys, and we were on stage going hell bent for leather on stage playing a set to an empty venue. I've never thought to this day, why do you just not play a normal gig?
Yeah.
And invite them up to a normal gig.
The funny thing is, I've heard a lot of bands tell that same story where if a major label for some reason wanted to see it in a certain venue with nobody in there except for
Yeah,
a
it's
few
weird.
executives.
It's a weird thing to do. It's really difficult to do. You know, it's just the oddest thing.
Very
You've got to perform as if there's 1,000 people there, and
Yeah.
it's a real head mess. You know,
It's a mad scenario. It's a mad situation.
So what was your relationship like with the other well-known UK thrash metal bands at that point? Because like from all accounts, it seems like everyone was kind of like, well, why did those guys get the major label deal? But did you feel any of that actually as a band?
Not necessarily from the other thrash bands. We're pretty supportive of each other. We've gone pretty well. I mean, we played with all of them. We played with Acid Rain. We played with Zentrix and Onslaught, and I don't think we played with Sabat, but you're right, it was a fairly niche scene. Did we play with Sabat? It's a fairly niche scene, and all the bands got on together pretty well.
Yeah.
The problem was with people outside the thrash thing who'd been playing for years and knocking their pins out and getting nowhere, and we suddenly rock up with a major label deal. I appeared from nowhere and it just the jealousy, dare I say it, you know, it was pretty toxic. And then journalists started jumping on that bandwagon and really banging that drum as well, and it pretty much killed it before it started, to be honest. You know, so
yeah.
Yeah,
And so the expectation from the label, what did they expect you guys to just blow up real quick? Was that the, because it seems like that's what their thinking was, the fact that you put out this album on there and then soon after that you're dropped. It's like, I mean, I don't know if they thought that you were going to be Metallica and just blow up immediately.
Yeah.
But did you guys feel pressure by them at all, or was it literally just, oh, you did?
Yeah, it wasn't pleasant at all. Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, we didn't have any control over everything. The album cover is brilliant. It's a lovely album cover, and we're really proud of it. But the initial idea, just as an example, was faxed to us, and it was very different. It was guys in really British establishment chalk pinstripe suits and oak paneling behind it and all that kind of thing. And we loved it. And then this thing turns up, and no offense, but it looked more like American Ivy League corporate. So it's I had a massive. It's not what we wanted, you know. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Whatever they said when, and we had very little deciding power over stuff like artwork. Nowhere near enough publicity for advertising and that kind of thing. They just didn't do anything at all, you know.
Yeah,
it was really strange. I mean, insisting that we're recording in London and living in hotels wasn't the best. You know, it was a better way to do it, but we had ideas about how we'd like to do it, but none of that got taken into consideration at all. So it made it a bit rough.
Okay, yeah, and so album comes out, you guys do some touring. From what I gathered, they weren't necessarily always putting you with the best bands that you guys could be played with, but when what happened? Like, what was the call or the fax or whatever you guys got where you're like, you guys have been dropped? How did that all go down?
I'll tell you how it happened. We were at a gig in Bradford, our hometown, in a lovely venue that's gone now called Queen's Hall. I can't remember who we were watching, but a journalist called Mark Day, Scottish guy, remember it? A journalist came up to me who was doing a piece for the band who were playing. He said, "Oh, sorry to hear about you being dropped." What? Excuse me? And the manager was in the building at the time. He hadn't told us. A journalist told us. Not the manager, a journalist told us. So I promptly went up to the manager and tore him a new one. And that was pretty much, you know, the decline, if you like. You know, I mean, we tried to carry on. And we did write another album and stuff, and we're quite proud of that one too. Yeah. But it was really, it just made it so difficult. And we were getting such a kicking in the press as well. You know what I mean? On reflection, it was a massive mistake to sign to a major label, but we just got carried away with all. Wow, you know, why wouldn't you? This is what everybody wants. Why would you say no? You know,
that's the thing is, from a perspective from somebody like me, where I did play in bands a lot when I was younger, and if somebody had just come to me and said, "Oh, you can be on a major label with major distribution, and we can put you on tours," I'd be like, "Oh yeah, where do I sign?" Like, you know, why would I not do that? So from what I gather, the EP that became Insanity Addicts, that was demos you were doing.
Yeah,
while you were still with Warner, but then that ended up not happening.
I think we might have been just at the tail end of it. Yeah,
it might have just been material that we were getting ready for the next.
Okay.
by then we'd found a studio we really liked in not far in North Yorkshire, which is far away from me.
Slaughterhouse.
Yeah, Slaughterhouse, which is burned down since, unfortunately. But just a really lovely little boutique studio. Great engineer called Steve Harris, no relation to the guy from Iron Maiden. We just felt comfortable there. We were a little bit more experienced. We knew what we were doing, and that's where those demos came from. And they were demos; they were pretty rough. You know, we had plans to make them better than that. And we recorded other stuff there as well, but we didn't release it. But yeah, that's kind of the future we saw, you know, taking shape. We were going to do more work at Slaughterhouse. We were happy there. It was a residential studio. We didn't have to live in hotels to do it, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Perfection, but we didn't have the perfection.
And is that where you recorded Nightmare Scenario as well?
No, that was a different thing. I'll get it on each other's story.
Well, we ended up looking for a studio. We went down to Wales, Mono Valley, and we saw that studio there where it had a pedigree because there was bands that had been there, like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, Google Mono Valley. Oasis have recorded there. No, it's the two brothers. One guy was Rockfield, where Rush, Motorhead, I think Led Zeppelin had recorded there. There were two brothers, and they fell out. The other brother opened up Mono Valley Studio. I think we were the first commercial band we got it at a knockdown price because they were kind of ironing out the wrinkles with the tech and stuff. So it didn't cost as much as it should have. It was an incredible studio.
Really nice.
Really.
In a nice setting, lake at the back.
Again, residential, so there's no like, you know, hiring a car to drive to the studio every morning, all that sort of crap, which is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It was a really good studio.
2 weeks there, we spent 2 weeks there recording it.
Yeah, and then finished it off in Heavy Metal Records. They've got a studio as well, or they had a studio in Wolverhampton, which wasn't bad, you know, it was pretty basic, but we'd done the heavy work by then, so it didn't matter.
We mixed it in Wolverhampton.
Cool. And so the music on Nightmare Scenario, because like Work of Idle Hands is a little more straightforward thrash, not totally straightforward, but more so than Nightmare Scenario. So did you find yourselves feeling like you need to branch out, or was it kind of a natural progression in the songwriting?
It was more natural.
It's fairly natural, but I think you have to show some progression.
Yeah.
You know, you're expected to, and I think that happens naturally anyway. You know. But
yeah, and so that album comes out, Heavy Metal Records, it's on, and so let's just to wrap up the talking about the past version of everything. So that album comes out. I'm assuming you toured on it, but at some point, was it in 1992 that you guys split up?
Yeah.
And do you care to elaborate on exactly what happened there?
We got a massive tax bill. It should have been paid. It should have been paid by the manager. One of the guys in the band at the time, the manager asked him where's that check? He said it's parked on my drive. Got a car with it. So, and that was just the end of it for me. It was just like it all gone so badly. We weren't getting on that well. We're all pretty fed up with each other. Because it had been a pretty rough ride for the past 2 years previous to that. You know, we've gone out with massively, what's the word? Just the wrong kind of acts, like Ingrid Malmsteen. We
didn't get much luck
on stage with Ingrid Malmsteen. What's going on there? Do you know what I mean? Again, it's, you know,
we didn't get much luck with tours. We didn't get to Germany. You know, we didn't get to US. We didn't get to the US or anything like that.
We didn't really get out of the UK that much. It's ridiculous.
It never sort of worked out. At the time we'd go for like a metal church, we would try to get on metal church, and just things just fell through, and it wasn't that kind of thing.
The best dates we had was a 5-day tour with Motorhead, which was brilliant. They were quite suited with them. Do you know what I mean? And we got on really well with them as well. So
yeah. Well, it seems like that's a similar story for all of that era's thrash bands in the UK, where it was really hard to get to America or anywhere else that was kind of further away. And then that's probably a big reason why, like over here, I didn't even know there was a UK thrash scene. I think the only music video I ever saw was Onslaught's cover of Let There Be Rock on MTV.
Which is not, I love the band, but, you know, I'm sure they're not happy about that either. Do you know what I mean? It's not a fair representation of them at all. Do you know what I mean?
No, not at all. And so that's why, like, I got into a lot of you guys like years later, once there was the internet, and I was like, oh shit, well, because I never saw ads, I never saw anything. It was just, so, you know, I could see why that scene didn't get the respect it deserves. But luckily now There's a lot more eyes on it, and you know, there are newer bands, but you know, I feel like a lot of the older bands still have something to say. And so now we're flashing forward to like 31 years
Yeah.
since you guys split up. And so the big question is, what brought you back together?
The constant steady stream of people asking us to do it.
Yeah.
The fact that, I mean, Zentrix asked me to do a guest spot with them a couple of years ago.
I saw that.
It wasn't the best. I wasn't particularly happy. I mean, it's great fun to do, but
It sounded good to me.
I can't watch it back. I'm not happy with it. But anyway, but it was brilliant. But then again, it sort of fired up. Like, yeah, this. I've missed this. Do you know what I mean? And I think Enzo probably felt the same as well. And basically, Enzo came around to my house here and asked me, what, 6 months ago now?
Yeah.
Something like that. And it was like, yeah, it seems silly not to. Everybody else is doing it. Why shouldn't we? Do you know what I mean? I see Grainer back out there. Zentrix are back out there. I don't really know what Onslaught are up to. I've not seen if they're doing anything, but I should imagine they will.
I think they are. Maybe.
I'm not. I actually am not sure what they're
I
doing.
saw them a year or two ago at Damnation. I think there's a bit of a resurgence as well, you know, with the new wave of thrash and what have you. And I'm thinking, well, you know, I think our stuff still sounds pretty much up there.
I've got a bit of a theory. It's a bit out there, but the Stranger Things, the character Eddie Munson.
Yeah.
Right, honest to God, I'm not kidding. I think there are kids who've never heard this stuff. And all of a sudden, Master of Puppets is blasting out their TV and they're like, what? And I think that's had a lot to do with it, actually. I really do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's coming back before that, but it just seems to be having a proper resurgence now. People are sort of listening to it. You know?
Yeah.
It's not like it's back to form with their new album. They're back to form. They're back to what sounding the way they all should do, as far as I'm concerned. It just seems to have come around full circle with it.
Yeah, and also an interesting thing that I've seen recently is because I have a 12-year-old daughter, and because of the way music is listened to these days, there's no boundaries as to like when did something come out and is something new. So they'll be listening to something that's brand new and be suggested something that's 30 years old.
Yeah,
and as long as it's good, they're getting into all of this stuff. And so I think when it comes to metal, that's a big thing that's happening where it's like, oh, you like this band? Well, 30 years ago, this other band did this stuff that's just like this, only better.
It's quite timeless. It's quite timeless. It doesn't change. The new bands who are doing thrash now still sound like thrash bands. There's a bit of a difference to it, but it's essentially the same ingredients. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it mix? Why wouldn't it work side by side? You know?
Yeah. And for you guys, obviously, you guys have still been busy doing music. It's not like you guys just went into hiding and then now you're back.
Yeah.
Enzo, you're doing Wolves of Slumber, which
Wolves of Winter.
Wolves of Winter. Is there a band called Wolves?
Wolves in Winter. That's what we're called.
Wolves in Winter.
There's a lot of bands with wolves in there. I know.
Edit that part out.
Don't worry about it.
But that's a great album. But I will. That's just a quick little thing there. But to get back onto Slammer, but but yeah. So okay. So you guys have gotten back together, and so I guess the thing is the lineup at this point, because there's the two of you guys. Unfortunately, Milo passed away in 2020, and so you've got an all new lineup backing you guys up. How did that lineup come together?
I don't know. I think the first thing was if you can't get a drummer, don't buy. The first thing you've got to sort out is the drummer. And luckily, I've known Adam quite a long time.
Yeah,
he was a huge Slammer fan anyway, so that made him a really good candidate. Obviously, he knew the songs, he knew the band, he knew the history. Because I think it'd be quite difficult to explain to somebody who's completely green about the whole thing, especially a drummer. It's really technical. It's quite difficult,
Yeah.
And he just sort of stepped in from the first rehearsal. It was just like, what?
Yep.
It was just absolutely.
And I think we asked Andy anyway, the old drummer.
Yeah.
He hadn't played drums for like God knows how long.
We asked Stuart Morrow, but unfortunately he's got personal reasons why he can't do it. Perfectly total respect to him as well. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Everybody's given us their blessing to go ahead. You know what I mean? Obviously, Milo, for obvious reasons, is going to be a part of it, but which is also sad.
Dan, I played with Dan, the guitarist Danny. He's been in the band with me before. And Isaac's in Wolves in Winter with me.
He's in Wolves in Winter.
Yeah, it just seemed like the best thing to do was ask him. He's into the stuff, so
Cool.
He was well happy to do it. So yeah, we've got these guys, and they're really, really good guys. Great musicians as well. So,
Yeah, really good. Really good.
Great.
Together pretty naturally. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of sort of working out. So that's a good thing.
Perfect.
That's not anything. So,
And I guess a lot of us, I mean, we'll get the first taste of that. Is it Manorfest or Manorfest,
Yeah.
however it's pronounced? And so, you know, a lot of us, especially me over here, I'm just going to be waiting for people to post videos of it once it happens. But so that's literally right now. That's the only public announced plan is playing.
It's the only
that.
thing we're prepared to announce at the moment. There's a lot of other things in the pipeline, and a lot of offers have come through. But we want to be a little bit careful about what we say yes to at this stage. And the other thing is, 30 years down the line, it's not quite the same. We've all got jobs, families, things like that to do. There's stuff going on outside. It'd be lovely to just drop everything and jump in a van and go and play every toilet in the UK again, but we're just not able to do that.
I still do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, having said that, so do I in the other band Diamond as well. But you know, with this, it's really we want to be a little bit choosy about what gigs we're playing, because it's not that easy for us to just drop everything and do whatever comes through the door. We're gonna have to be a little bit more circumspect about it, I think. So.
Okay, yeah, and so all right. So obviously, no announcements when it comes to that. But can you speak on whether or not there will be new material at some point?
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
It would be nice.
Yeah, I feel that it will come along, but obviously we've got to get up and running.
I think it's inevitable, but we've got to get comfortable with learning the old stuff again, which is, you know, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of polishing to do. We're nearly there. Yeah, it's physically quite demanding, a lot more than it was. As a singer, I mean, it's full tilt all the time. Do you know what I mean? So I'm going to have to get fit before Manifest. I really am. But I think it's inevitable that we will start throwing riffs about and coming up with the odd beat here and there. And, you know, if I can find a lyric to something, that's it, we're off. I mean, but I've got to say that the thought of I know what's involved in getting like 10 or 15 songs together for an album, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And as much as I'd like to do it, I don't know how much time and energy we've all got to be able to devote to that. Do you know what I mean? At this stage, I'm not saying no.
Sure.
But there's nothing definite in the pipeline at the moment. But we'll see what happens, I think.
Okay. So when in regards to playing the old stuff, has it felt kind of natural getting back into it, or has it been a bit of a struggle?
No, surprisingly.
The speed's been difficult. The first album is very, very fast, and I can't. How the hell have we played that fast? So now we're just saying, no, we need to slow it down and have a bit of a more of a mature groove to it. But it's still fast, but probably not as fast as 30 years ago. But, that's been the most difficult thing for me.
Yeah.
And the most difficult thing for me was obviously remembering the lyrics, because there's a lot of them, and I had to look for the lyrics online for Born for War and tracks on Idle Hands. And I swear to God, I thought whoever had submitted these lyrics had just put somebody else's lyrics in there. I didn't even recognize them. I swear to God, I didn't recognize them as my own lyrics until I listened back to it. Oh yeah, they are. Yeah, it's actually me. I did write that. Do you know what I mean? So there's a bit of that, and it's quite difficult to remember it, but I'm getting there. We're nearly there now, I think. Should go.
Yeah, there are a lot of words in some of the songs to remember.
Sorry.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So once again, before we wrap this up, I just want to say thanks for choosing my channel for this, because it's a big deal for me because I'm a big fan. So whatever the future brings, even if it's, you know, a handful of shows, just seeing you guys, you know, doing the songs again would be worth it. Now, in a perfect world, everything would blow up huge and you guys would get an offer to come to America and do a tour, and I'll actually get to come see you. But, you know, we'll see what happens. Somebody with a big checkbook should offer this huge tour to all of the classic UK thrash bands that are still going and bring them over here, because I think that would do really well.
UK Big Four's a goer, I reckon. Yeah, depending on what's on the lineup. I mean, if it was possible to get, I don't know, Onslaught, Acid Rain, Zentrix and us on the same bill and do a US tour, I think that could work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd pay a lot of money for that. But so yeah, so right now we're just waiting for Mannerfest. When is that happening?
We're on the 26th, isn't it? Friday the
26th of May.
26th.
Oh, coming up pretty quick
Yeah.
here. Okay,
Yeah.
you guys got to get back to practice then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everybody, Slammer, their stuff's all on streaming services, or you can be a nerd like me and go to Discogs and try to find old school vinyl copies and get them because that's what I did, and that's how I like to listen to it. But yeah, any parting words from you guys before we wrap it up?
Just thanks for flying the flag for us, and you were a natural choice for the first person to actually make an official announcement. So
Cheers.
much appreciated.
Awesome. Yeah. No, it's an honor and a pleasure, absolutely. And so yeah. So if anything else happens down the line, feel free to reach out to me for promotion because I am here and you guys rule. And best of luck to you guys at the show. And I'll speak to you guys soon.
Take care,
Cheers,
mate.
man.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.